taking this one to the grave.
Hey Pretty Little Liars fans, Heather here with Sidereel's Pretty Little Liars TV, bringing you recaps and highlights from this week's episode of Pretty Little Liars. But before we begin, I have to warn you that this recap may contain spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode already, this is your official spoiler alert. But if you have, then watch on for a recap and highlights from this week's episode, The Homecoming Hangover.
If I show you, then I know you won't tell what I said. 'Cause two can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
This week's episode, appropriately titled The Homecoming Hangover, felt like just that. It was a slow episode, slower than the drama, the fast-paced drama that we're used to at least. And I'd have to say that what frustrated me most was the fact that we didn't get any answers this episode, only more questions. We think Emily fell, but we never find out what exactly happened to her on that night. We know Toby, being a nice guy, rushes her to the hospital before disappearing from Rosewood, but that's all we really get. Emily still wants to believe Toby's a good guy, but her friends are convinced otherwise.
If Toby killed Allison and wanted to do the same to me, then why am I sitting in my bed and not in a body bag?
Emily struggles with something else this episode. She decides to accept her feelings for Maya and go with it.
I miss you. And I want to try and make this work.
Jenna makes a bigger appearance this episode. She pays a visit to Emily to request her brother's file be returned to her, and we find out that Allison came to visit Jenna in the hospital. But what I really want to know is, what did Allie say to Jenna in the hospital? Before Emily can tell the other girls not to destroy the file, Aria decides to throw it in the river. That was stupid. Did she even consider burning it or shredding it or both? I mean, doesn't she know that water doesn't destroy paper? Anyways, Emily assures Jenna the file's been destroyed, and Jenna's reply is disturbing to say the least.
I hope you're not lying to me.
Maybe there's something juicier in that file than intimate stepbrother-sister relations. Meanwhile, Spencer, Hannah, and Aria are all dealing with post-homecoming dramas of their own. Sean's pissed that Hannah ditched him at the dance, and an awkward yearbook photo shoot allows for some bonding time between Lucas and Hannah. We'll see how it all plays out, but I'm rooting for Hermie and Hefty Hannah. Spencer tries to mend things with Alex with a do-over date, but Alex cancels because he has to work, so Spencer checks in on his alibi and ends up throwing on a hairnet and helping him out. That is, until she finds herself on the bitch board.
So this is how everyone who works here sees me?
But her doubts are quickly forgotten when Alex woos her with some fancy dance moves. And finally, Aria goes into stalker mode after ending things with Fitz. She finally gets so desperate that she shows up at his apartment and lets herself in, only to hear a heartbreaking message on his machine.
I just wanted to confirm your interview for tomorrow. And please don't forget to bring your New York certification. Again, we're really looking forward to meeting you.
Poor Aria. But good for Fitz. He needed to get himself out of there before he gets into too much trouble. The episode ends in another cliffhanger. We see Toby's mangled up motorcycle and Jenna bawling her eyes out. We don't know if Toby is dead or what, but we have a feeling that he's going to be out of the picture for a while. At least A seems to think so.
What is it? Thanks for getting Toby out of my way.
And then, of course, we see the mysterious black leather figure retrieving Toby's file from the river. Bad news. All in all, this episode was a bit of a letdown, but there were a few good moments. First, props to Sarah Shepard, the author of the PLL book series, for making her debut on the show this week. She played Fitz's sub, Miss Shepard. Clever. She was very believable in her role, though she only had a few lines. And second, I enjoyed the dancing sequence with Alex and Spencer. Did you notice the song they were listening to in the background? It It was a song by Alex, or rather Diego Boneta himself, called Siempre Tu, which is pretty awesome if you ask me.
In your pocket, taking this one to the grave.
On the next episode of Pretty Little Liars, titled Please Do Talk About Me When I'm Gone, Allison's brother Jason, played by Parker Bagley, returns home and messes with the girls' plans for Allison's memorial service. And Detective Wilden returns. Also, Emily and Maya make their relationship public for the first time. Catch all that and more on next week's episode of Pretty Little Liars. Catch it on Tuesdays at 8/7 Central on ABC Family. And check back with me next week at Sidereel's Pretty Little Liars TV for a recap of next week's episode.
I said, 'cause two can keep a secret if one of them is dead.